this is what happens when a retro speaker gets brought back the right way. We've never done a video on the Mission 770s, and we literally just had them on display at a show in Florida with the whole Audio Lab stack. And the people that saw this and heard these in Florida really absolutely loved them. And they look different than a lot of other speakers. They have a look that
they do.
Not a lot of people have done. Actually, I don't think anybody else has done this where the front is white.
Yes.
They're available in walnut. They're available in black. Totally a different look than most other speakers on the market, but that's how it was back then, and they kind of continued the legacy and remaking it. And I really do think they built these better than they did originally.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that about a lot of the, kind of reissued speakers that are out there, or maybe not direct. There are some where they kept the name, right, but it's a totally different speaker.
Yeah, so you had like the KLH Model 5, right? The Wharfedale Lintons.
Which was a totally different speaker back then.
Oh, the Model 5?
No, like the Lintons.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you look at pictures of the Lintons, it's like...
It's not the same.
No, it's not.
And now the Super Linton.
Yeah.
Okay, which then they also made the Dovedales, which are just incredible speakers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I have Lintons. Super Lintons are great. The Dovedales are just top-notch stuff.
Yeah.
I love the Dovedales. Then you have all the Klipsch series, right? So they just released the new Klipsch La Scalas and the new Klipsch horn, the AL6 La Scala and the Klipsch horn 7. I think they're on the 7 on the Klipsch horn now.
Yeah.
They introduced like the active crossover on the outside, which is really cool stuff. So I thought the Mission 770s, like this is a speaker that when you compare it to all these other vintage speakers in the price range, like you're talking like best speakers under $5,000. The Mission has like people really, really gravitate towards this speaker.
Yeah, I mean the sound is very, when you're going for like a nice, a higher up, hi-fi speaker, you want to really just feel like you're hearing things in that system or in that speaker that you just haven't heard before. Like even like your nice sound bars and things like that. And you do get a ton of that with the Mission 770s. They sound extremely crisp, but also very smooth. But in terms of just detail, punch, dynamics, how clean they sound, they do that very, very well.
I heard over and over at the Florida International Audio Expo. Oh my gosh, I actually said it right.
Yeah.
I just call it the Florida Audio Show. But,
yeah, Flax.
Flax. So I heard so many people say that was one of the best sounding rooms in the show.
Yeah.
And it was not expensive in comparison. I mean, I think the system we had with all the Audio Lab pieces, we had a dual turntable, the 529. We had the Audio Lab 9000N streamer, the E9000P and Q preamp and amp. And we had the 9000 CDT, one of your favorite CD players. And so I think altogether, everything we had in the room was like $12,000.
Sure.
Which, it's $12,000. That's a good amount of money. But
that'll be like just the one mono amp. It's like your left channel amp in a lot of other rooms.
Yeah, you're at an audio show. Like these are $1 million systems. $12,000 is like, the one channel of the amp or the foot that they added to the bottom of it to give it more acoustic isolation, right? So a lot of people were really surprised about this speaker. And we actually sold a bunch of these at the show. And actually, what was interesting is on the way down to the show, we stopped and saw one of our friends in Atlanta. And we were discussing hi-fi and kind of hanging out. And we ended up going and doing the show with the Mission speakers. Actually lent him my Parasound JC3 Junior, which he bought, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's
he
very
was
nice.
like, he's like, I really don't want to give this thing back. I really like this.
Kind of
so I'm
trap
like, yeah. Well, you put a Parasound JC3 Junior in your system, and you don't have like a higher input preamp.
It's very noticeable.
You're not sending it back. That's the thing with the JC3 Junior. But so we went to the show. We were listening to Missions all weekend. We listened to other stuff too. I think we had the Spendor Classic 1.2s there.
Yeah.
Which also sold. We sold the pair we had there to one of our new friends down in Florida.
Yeah.
Who we can't wait to go see soon and actually listen to him in his setup. So hopefully he's watching and we're going to see you next time we come down.
Yeah, that was a nice speaker. I mean, I've listened. The classic 100s are my favorite, and the 1.2s, the classic 1.2s, aren't like a 100 light. They kind of do their own thing. Yeah, a little more forward, but really just a really nice. I mean, Spendor just kills it.
Spendor really does kill it, and the interesting thing about Mission And Spender, like when we talk Spender, these Spender Classic speakers, the larger ones, are over 10 grand.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I think the 1.2s might be 12 with the stands, maybe. I don't even know if the stands are included in that. And then the Classic 100s are like 15. And we've done a couple systems with those lately, and they are amazing. Dude. I mean, like, if you got the budget, amazing speakers. But if your budget's under 5 grand, you want to try to get close to, that level, because 5 grand still, like, we see a lot of people with that budget for speakers, and this happens to be like that price range that a lot of people are asking questions in. Like, what do I get? Because there's so much out there between like 2 and 6,000, or maybe 3 and 6,000, whatever it is. And these aren't really a floor stander, and they're not really a bookshelf. They're kind of like that vintage box style that I call it.
Stand mount.
That's okay. That's probably the actual proper term. But what's interesting is a lot of people were really surprised going into this room. Maybe they haven't heard a Mission. Maybe they were like, this isn't a $100,000 system. What's it going to sound like?
The big thing that kind of it's just a 2-way. So that kind of looks, what is this? Is this like a big bookshelf? Things like that. It's you can really make a speaker look very impressive with all the drivers, and people do. They really design speakers very well, and because you have the phase issue. When the sound's coming from different places, even if it's just, right off the front of that cabinet, I mean, you just have a timing and distance traveled hitting your ear. But you do that 2-way design. It doesn't look as, intricate, but it does keep things very, very clean and just kind of tight.
I mean, I was surprised it doesn't take a lot to power these either.
Correct.
So like when you're not using like a giant amp, like we're not, when you're not using 200 watts, you're using like a modest, I think the Audio Labs are like 100 watt amp that we were using. And I mean, they really they shined.
Yeah.
And we hear that from a lot of people though, because this has been, since we put out that video years ago, one of our, the speakers everybody asked about. And everybody that watched that was always like, dude, but the Missions. And like that wasn't even the point of that video. The point of the video was just to show a couple speakers, because I think the hot thing at the time was like the KLH Model Fives and the Lintons. Like that was the big debate. And I'm like, at the last minute, I'm like, let's throw this Mission in here. I know it's like at the very top of this budget that we're doing in this video, but we didn't have anything else that was like $5,000. And I'm like, let's just throw this in. It's a vintage speaker.
Sure.
But that wasn't the theme, even though most of the speakers were vintage, now that I think about it. But it wasn't like a retro themed video. It was just like, we need another speaker, let's do this. And that happened to be the one that everybody just talked about ever since. And we hear this when we travel all the time. Hey, I saw you guys do that video with the speakers, where we started the video out with taking a vintage speaker. So do you remember this? I think it was me and Spencer.
Yeah.
So Spencer came in, and I'm like, dude, here, take this speaker. And it was like an AR3, which people were just going to hate this.
Is that the one that you...
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So I'm like, we went up to the dock, and we just chucked it. We were trying to see who could chuck it the farthest.
I love that intro, though, where it like went to it cut off right before it hit the ground, and...
Yeah,
that was funny,
because like that's what we actually did. Like it was just surprise. Let's do this. This might be fun.
An AR3 though.
It might not have been. I think it was though, because they were really a pain to like redo.
Yeah, they're all sealed.
And I was like, I'm not even messing with this. It didn't work right. And so for all those people that like commented that, oh, why didn't I just give it to you? Because it needed a lot of work, and I bought it.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, so that's an interesting. We were just in Dallas. The other week at the Southwest Audio Fest. I gotta remember these things. And we went out to eat. At, what was that place called?
Which one?
The one with the speakers. Culinary Dropout.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So we went out to Culinary Dropout in Dallas. And this was a pretty good restaurant. We had fun. We hung out with one of our friends out there, and I met some other people. There's a lot of industry people out there. We hang out. But they had a stage, they had a live band, and this live band was playing on a great live band. I don't know what they were called, but they were great. I follow them on Instagram now.
Yeah, it was just two guys. It was very good.
Two dudes playing music. I think that was the name of the band.
That was the name of the band.
And so we're sitting there, but the backdrop was all these vintage speakers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the freaking coolest backdrop I've ever seen.
It was all stacked and then painted over. Like they had like a logo or, some
just different painted designs all over the place.
As if it was just like a canvas of speakers.
Yes, the speakers were the canvas, and then a painter came in and did all kind of painting all over them. So I posted this picture on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
People did not like this.
What, the wall of sound?
Yes.
Oh,
they got really mad.
Really?
So I posted a short of this.
I mean, there were some like HPM 100s up there, just like.
Yeah, but okay.
I was like, hey,
So,
those are worth some money.
if you'd have had a wall of speakers that just had all like crap speakers,
yeah.
it wouldn't be as cool. Right?
Yeah.
And so when you put nice like HPM 100s, you're not thinking of wrecking these, but these look pretty good. I mean, the tweeters weren't original and whatever, but they still had the white drivers.
Yeah.
Like they still had like it was cool. They had all these speakers and they like cut the back of them. They like shaved the back, I think.
Wow.
So that they could screw them. I don't know. They had literally like screw holes going through the side diagonally to screw onto this wall. But I feel like they might have shaved the backs. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't do that. But it was HPM 100s. He had Polk SDAs. They had the swirls all over. I thought they were the coolest looking ones. But, you had all these really nice speakers, and they put them up on this wall as an art piece. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
It was cool. I mean, it was great. It was the stage where the musicians played. That was the backdrop.
And people were, like, really angry. They were like, why would they do this to these speakers? And, in my head, those dudes bought the speakers. You do whatever you want with them, man.
This is true.
Just, if you want to spray paint them, I think it was a solid investment.
I don't know. Maybe they all don't work, and maybe I just did see the one HPM 100.
No, there was two. Everything had a match pair. And so the other interesting thing, now that you say that, and we can get the answer to this, because the dude that sold the store the speakers watched the short.
Was he? What did he say?
I didn't ask him, but he said, he's like, I know where you're at. You're at Culinary Dropout.
We got to get the story. All the
speakers.
We got to just be like,
so yeah, do they work? Do they not work? Does it matter? Do you guys think that it matters? I would love to hear this in the comments. If somebody buys something and decides that they want to wreck it, paint it, do whatever with it, is that okay with you, or do you? Because what happens? Here's the comments. You could have just given that to me.
Oh.
Right, so that's one of them is just like
entitled.
So when we were throwing the speakers out, somebody was like, "You could have just given those to me. I wanted those."
It's not like they were thrown out. People were enjoying them. It's an art piece.
Maybe I meant when we threw them off the.
Okay, well, yeah, sure, yeah.
But even in that case scenarios, people did say that like I could have used those or something.
Yeah.
Like, what do you guys think of that? That's an interesting concept because I really think that like. This restaurant bought them. I think it's an awesome art piece. One of the best. So the reason it was
a tribute.
The reason it was so cool was because it was good speakers. Like I stopped and said, "Dude, they got HPM 100s on the wall." If they would have just had like freaking white van speakers all over the place, and not saying that there weren't a couple, who cares?
Yeah, this is true. That was kind of I would have looked at it for a lot less.
But if the whole wall was like, because there were JBLs, like the whole wall's JBL behind, like they made an investment in this art piece, and I think that was so cool that like somebody would do that. So let us know the pictures on the community thing. I'll probably have put it in this video by now, so you guys can see what it was. But it was an interesting concept. But I got the same results when we threw all the speakers off the back. People were like, "Why didn't you just give them to me?" Like, because they were mine.
Yeah, you do with it what you want.
I mean, that being said, I've given plenty of speakers.
This is true
over time. Right? But in that case, I think a lot of people got enjoyment out of watching that.
See,
or they hated.
This is gonna make when you're saying it was good speakers, like they were good speakers. That's what made the wall interesting.
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna tie this back to the missions being like they were good speakers, and now we have better ones.
We do. That's where I was going with this, and back to the missions.
Not the diss.
Sorry, that was a side quest story that I just thought was so cool. It was just a big part of the week.
It was, yeah.
That's something.
Missions would have looked good up there.
They would have, and you probably wouldn't have needed to paint them because of the white front.
Yeah.
So, like, who is this speaker like for?
Well, I mean, it's such a transparent, disappears kind of speaker. They kind of, depending on what you're playing, like the genre of music, they kind of do different things. So, I mean, that's kind of how I would approach it. They do like space and like reverb and like all those, you can hear the room sound. It's the drivers are a big thing.
Okay.
It is 8-inch polypropylene woofer, which is like plastic. So very clear, very clean bass, very punchy. But they have a silk tweeter, which kind of pops out a little bit. So it's very wide. It's a dome silk tweeter, so it disperses very wide. And that's very clear, but it's also very smooth rolled off, kind of high end. The frequency response ends at 20,000 hertz, which, that's how much we hear up to. And a lot of high end speakers go a lot higher than that, but they roll that off right at 20. And so it's a very clear, crisp sound that's very punchy with a lot of clean bass, but it's super smooth. So for jazz, I mean, it's just like if you think of like Miles Davis, just like kind of kicking the room, like that stuff translates really, really well. Classical, you get like all the dynamics, like that punch isn't necessarily going to get the drums kicking, but, just the, inner dynamics in each note, translates really well with classical. But, for like, I do a lot of Tool, you can hear that the guitar textures just come through really, really well.
So it's interesting that you mentioned the room, like the dispersion, and like the size, right? Because I didn't get back to it because I went off in a different story. But our friend in Atlanta, he had this like room problem.
Yes.
What was the problem in setting up that room?
He didn't really have like your clean, your rack and then the two speakers left and right of that rack.
Yeah.
There was kind of a corner and he had one speaker on each side and the corner kind of went to the staircase. So there's this whole just like tunnel back there.
Oh yeah. Cause the speakers were on either side of the staircase. And
he was really worried about wall placement.
Yes.
And it's sealed on the back. There's the front port, which does really help with, a little bit extra bass extension and just, having that just really, really clean, not distorted at all bass. But it does make it a little bit easier when placing in the room. I mean, the highs are dispersing very wide. The bass wall placement isn't a big thing. It's still got a sweet spot, but it's a lot more forgiving.
Yeah.
He had it in an office, so as he's working and kind of going around in the room, like it always sounds good.
But that would be a problem with a lot of other speakers.
Sure.
So like for somebody that doesn't have that perfect room or that certain setup, or maybe they have to have neck like against the wall, or maybe they need to have them spaced out in the middle of something. Doesn't matter because it's a front port, right? So I think, it kills a lot of issues that people may have.
Yeah.
And can solve those. Solving was the right word there.
They're just a really, and a lot of the, like we were talking about like the Model 5s, that's very like sparkly, where like the Missions have all that high detail, but it's very smooth. And then you have like the Lintons, which, that's kind of what I think of when it's like a old school, new school speaker. It's very warm and relaxed. Like they really kind of push that. The Lintons don't do that. I mean, they could easily sound thin, but they do have a nice mid-range where it's nice and full, and that's all balanced.
Yeah.
But,
I have the Lintons. I love the Lintons, but
sure.
It's a different sound.
Sure. But this, it's like you're just getting a really well, just balanced amount of detail and just actual tonality.
And I think the one thing that's big for everybody, of course, these are made in the UK.
Yes.
Right? So they're not made in China, they're made in the UK. It's great. It's good quality stuff, and that is built into the price, right? Like a lot of that, like when you're paying, $5,000 for a pair of speakers, that are made in the UK. That's if they were made in China, they may be less, but like you're getting a build quality that you're getting, that UK product, like the Spandor or something.
Yeah, UK, like anytime it's like a wood cabinet, like they always have really good wood, and
Yeah, better wood in the UK than in China?
I don't know. I don't know about that. It's not don't want to go there.
Well, but
you know, trees.
But like the quality and build quality and construction of a product in the UK is going to be better.
Yeah, no, I mean they've been doing HiFi forever. I mean, you know, we were talking about Spendor. The missions are, you know, they're kind of in that family.
Yeah,
where it's just you maybe don't get all the tone that you get with like a Spendor classic speaker, but you're paying for that. You know, what you're getting is just that just really accurate, well balanced, smooth, but clear sound. I did a demo with them once, and I don't know how to like describe, but like a real processed vocal sound. It was like an indie record, and it was one where like they had the vocalist like in this like sistrum, you know, like these really cavernous spaces. Okay. Like the vocals were really processed, and just that translated so well. Like effects, all the little details in the music come through really, really nicely.
I think they solve a lot of problems for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, and they're good. The bass, people really like the bass.
Yeah, well, it's so clean. I mean, you know, I am a big subwoofer guy, like I'm a bass head, but it's ridiculously clean bass. I mean, that's the polypropylene.
Which is what I like, because I'm not a bass head. I want it to be very clean. I don't want a lot of distortion in my bass. I want it to feel like an extension of the mid-range. That's what I like. Mm-hmm. I don't. You could have a deep thump here and there, mm-hmm. but it's got to be very accurate.
It is, yeah.
And just an extension of the mid range mm-hmm. for me. Just a little lower, low end, but extension of how you would assume a mid range would sound.
Well, you hear some speakers that go for like a more forward, clear sound, and the bass is just not really there.
Yes,
and you do get. You know, it kind of like blankets around you, and it's very, it's kind of like putting like isoacoustic feet on like a speaker, like what that does to the bass, where it just kind of moves through the room a little bit easier, and it's not like interfering with.
Which actually one of the people that got the missions at the Florida show.
Oh, did he get those?
Did the isoacoustic show and make them like even next level?
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, they're still like making contact. It's just on a normal stand, but it's just that. You know, we're something like a Linton, which you know, we love the Lintons and all that, but the Kevlar cones, like that is a very full mid range, and it anytime you boost one thing, you're kind of taking away from something else. And while the Lintons do have a lot of lower mids, you know, just the pure clean bass, you know, I think something like the Missions does a lot better.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is, you know, we use the Lintons and the Super Lintons and stuff in this comparison mm-hmm. because they're actually made by the same parent company.
Sure.
Right? So mm-hmm. it's really good because you get like a good, better, best scenario. Mm-hmm. And you think of that with just maybe doing one brand. And you could do that. You got the Linton, you got the Dentons, the Super Lintons, the Dovedales, right? Good, better, best. Mm-hmm. But you can do that across brands as well. Mm-hmm. Right? And a lot of it's price range, right? So, like, the Lintons, I had the original Lintons, which I've had for years now. Mm-hmm. You know, you're looking at sub $2,000, I guess. And, like, then you have your Missions at $5,000. Then you go to Spendors at $10,000, but they're, you know, they're
and you have
all...
the leaks. The leaks
are... The leaks. I love the sandwich. The Sandwich 250s are so cool.
They're great.
So cool.
They're great. But, you know, that is, you know... The Sandwich 250s, and then you get to the Missions where it's just like next level of just refinement and balance and being a little more natural.
We're going to have the Sandwich 250s at Exponent. I am pumped.
Dude, I mean, for half the price of the Lintons, the Sandwich 250s are just a really clean...
I meant the big ones.
Yeah. That's the 250s.
Yeah, but they're not half the price of the Lintons. They might be...
like
the big
$3,000.
Ones might be more than the Lintons. I think the Lintons are probably half the price.
No, I was saying
half
the price. Did I say Lintons? I meant to say Missions.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah. That's okay. It's okay. There's a lot of speakers here with a lot of price ranges. We don't always look at them every day. So it's okay. You guys know what we need.
The Missions are $5, you know, the Leaks I think are $3 with the stands, and then, you know, the Spendors for the classics you're paying $10 and above.
But it's all like one speaker family.
It is.
And like the same designer mm-hmm. does the other speakers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, or does like the amps, and like their designers are into everything, and that's what like putting stuff together that makes sense and kind of makes one sound the better. Like there's different combinations, and you can do any mix match of whatever. Yes. But that's like what we try to help people do. That get the right thing.
Well, that's a whole thing. So if you have like, Advanced Paris or something with a lot of tubes that, is really richening up your sound, or you do a lot of vinyl and maybe you like the microlinear styluses that are a little warmer and not as analytical, running that into some missions, can kind of balance all that out and give you a little bit more detail, as opposed to the whole thing just being relaxed and warmer, and you kind of lose something at the end.
We did also play the missions with the Advanced Paris, and they sounded incredible too.
Well, something like the missions, because it does go for a transparent thing. It'll sound good with everything. I mean, it's like the best thing to put on with the Audio Lab stuff.
It's such a good combination.
That's like, Synergy, I'll be like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like Synergy is like a little overrated, where like you don't need to like go into like the output voltage of this preamp and the input voltage of this amp and make sure that's all right. Like people do that, but I don't know what's going on with the Audiolab Mission stuff, but it is a very good combo.
I'm telling you, it surprises a lot. It surprises people. But Synergy is like a real thing. And what's so funny is like when you go to the chat on allleadaudio.com, it goes to our phones, right?
It does.
And we can all see the chat, and we'll jump in here and there. But like some of the questions and people get these, they submit the contact thing, or they just call us. And a lot of the questions we get when we help somebody build a system, we're kind of all involved. Like it's not always just one person. A lot of times it is.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's all of us. And they'll be like, what do you think of this and this? And we'll look at it and be like, I don't think that's a good pairing. And, if somebody wants what they want, that's fine.
Sure.
And everybody hears stuff differently and everything. But we might say, but what about this one? Are you opposed to this brand of amp to go with those speakers? Are you opposed to this speaker to go with that amp? Because the synergy between those two products, and that's a lot of what we do, is talk synergy in different brands, because we've heard them all. We've mixed them all up, paired them with different stuff, heard them at all, everything about them. So we kind of know what kind of pairs well with each other.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing, because you might send me a system and be like, why did he go with that?
It's happened, yeah.
And I'll be like, dude, if he went with that, it would sound so much better. And then, like, it could go either way. He could be like, that's awesome, perfect, let me do that. Okay. Or they might just be like, I just like the looks of that one. And then it is what it is.
Totally understand.
And, like, because I have systems in my house that are not synergized. Is that a word? That's a word now.
Synergistic?
Yeah. So but that's okay, because I like the looks or something about the amp, and maybe it's not the perfect, but then again, we know that sound. Somebody else might not know that sound, and they might. This is everybody hears stuff. If you don't hear it, you don't know.
Yeah. No, and you can get a lot more out of. Like let's say you have a budget, you can get all this stuff and get a more expensive
budget's
speaker.
Another part of it.
But you can get synergy is a way to get the most out of your budget. Is kind of, the way, if you can, it's like at these shows, I mean, with the Mission and Audiolab stuff and how it's really just competing with these $100,000 systems. That's the kind of result you can have if you do the synergy part right.
But that's a good point. Somebody might say, I have a budget of this. And I need to do a whole system from the ground up. Synergy is very important in that. But maybe they're like, I have a budget of this and I have this amp. So then we got to find something like a speaker that'll make a good fit for the music they want to listen to. Or maybe they're just like, I want the best speakers and just an okay amp. And that, it goes all different ways, but that's kind of the synergy to the point.
No, that people do that, and it's totally fine. And a lot of them, they kind of upgrade a little bit later. And that's fine. You'll definitely, if you have a really nice set of speakers, like if you, with the Missions and you put on just like some cheap amp to it, like it'll sound good. You'll still get the sound of the Missions, but then when you do make an upgrade later, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, and it's a hobby. It's a thing where you think you're done, but you're not. You're probably gonna get more.
I'm at a point now where it's like I just like changing things around.
Yeah,
I could build like the most perfect system, and then I would just change it later.
Yeah, and
that's something maybe not as great, but it's just a little different.
That's what it's all about. And talking about being done with things. That's the end of today's.
Nice.
Yeah, right? Like that. So, guys, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video, subscribe to Ty. I see.
Subscribe to Ty.
Subscribe to Tom Bryan Hi-Fi. Tom's channel, links in the description as well. And if you're looking for a hi-fi system, you want to talk synergy, you want to talk about this stuff with us, if you made it through the part of the video where I said just screw your vintage speakers onto the wall and you're okay with that, hey, give us a call. We'll help you build a better hi-fi system. We can help you 10x that system. No problem. And help you on that journey. It's late. And help you on that journey because it won't end. So we will see you guys next time.